Good morning, class. Today we're going to begin using our processing software, and there is a great PowerPoint presentation to kind of go through the basics of processing on my website. So if you're into Computer Science Principles Schedule, if you scroll down here to Shapes, Variables, Loops, Functions, Animations, and Arrays, that's what we're going to be working on today. Now, let's get your processing platform opened, and we'll run that in the background while we're reviewing this slideshow. So there's a couple ways you can get access to that. One might be that it's still in your downloads. So I would open up my downloads and go into the folder that I extracted everything from, and you will see the icon processing. That is, if I double clicked on that, it would start up my processing software. You also might be able to search for it inside your computer. So it's processing, and there's my app as well. So I can open it up that way. So now that that's opening up, I'm going to go back and review our slideshow. Introduction. So what is processing? I'd like for you to read through this. I don't need to read it to you, but I'll hit the highlights here. So it's a real easy program that makes programming fun and easy. It doesn't need a compiler. It is free, and it just takes all the complications out of coding to make you see some animation, some shapes, some colors, and it's fun and exciting. So I'm gonna expect that you read through this as we go through to our first program. So think about graph paper. How would you draw a line between the points 0, 0 and the point 5, 5? Well, you would do your X and Y Cartesian coordinate systems, and you could graph a line that way. Now, in processing, we have to tell it to draw a line. And there are certain things that we will need to type in order for it to work. So let's take our first program. Go into your processing that now should be open. You'll see a window here that says welcome. We can just get started there. And then you should see your window here with your console down. So in order to get started, we need to do a setup. So it's a void setup. And what we're going to determine in our setup is just basically the size of our window. So let's say just 500 by 500. And that should give us a window to show our objects that we're going to be drawing. So then we need to do a method called a draw method. So void draw. And now inside this draw method, we should be able to do the examples provided inside of the PowerPoint presentation. So the first one they talked about here was making a line with having the initial beginning of the line, the X and Y coordinates for the starting position here of the line, with the ending XY coordinates for the last 3, 4 parameters, third and 4. So the way it works out here is you're going to indicate what method you want to use, which is line, and then the parameters that follow in there. So parameters 1 and 2 are the X and Y coordinates. Parameters 3 and 4 are the X and Y coordinates for the end of the line. So let's try that. 10, 10, 90, 90. So line 10, 10, 90, 90, and you do need a semicolon at the end for it to compile. Then you hit the run, and it should put up a window, a perfect square window by 500 by 500, and there's our line. You can see that we have drawn a line there. Okay, so you should exit out of these because that will stack up and use memory space, so you can minimize this. Now then, let's try to look at other coding that is inside of our PowerPoint example here. So now you might have noticed what is different about the direction of the line, noticing that on the left-hand side it starts at the top, and on the right-hand side it goes down to the bottom. When you think of a Cartesian system, you think maybe the middle of the screen, or the middle of the X and Y, 0, 0, I mean, is going to be in the middle. However, in processing, we use the top left corner for the anchor point of 0, 0, where moving to your right, X values increase, and moving down, Y values increase. So when we make a point at 10, 10, 90, 90, you can see that that's the reason why that line would go downwards. So basic shapes, we can draw a point. We can draw a rectangle. A rectangle has an anchor point of 20, 20, and then it's going to be length and width. So as you can see here, the anchor point starts in the top left-hand corner with the 20/20 for this rectangle, and then we have 50/50 by width, length and width. So let's draw that one out. Rectangle 20/20, 50/50. Let's see what that looks like. So rect 20/20, 50/50, and run this. Hopefully it won't interfere with the line. It should not be. The line will go right through that. Okay. So you can see, and the way that there is an order of operations to the way that this code works. So the first line of code will be laid down. Then the next line of code will be laid down on top of that. So as you saw in this example here, that rectangle will cover that line because it is further down in the code. So we have other basic shapes, a quadrilateral. We would need to identify all 4 points, and it will connect those to create this shape here. Triangle as well, because it doesn't have a defined width and height or width and length. You will need to define the 3 XY coordinates that will create the shape of that triangle. So let's try a couple of those real quick. I might even be able to, no, I was going to copy that out. Let's just do a triangle now with those particular coordinates and see what that looks like. So trying to make this box fit inside here. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Triangle, and we've got 13, 75, 28, 20, 13, 75, 28, 20, 25, so 26, 75, 26, 75. Oh, I need a comma there. All right, so now then that looks like there's no red in our code. Let's run that to see what that produces. Oh, I ran it twice. So there's our triangle that we created there. Okay, ellipses and circles. An ellipse you're going to have, again, it's going to create your X and Y coordinate, and then you have your X diameter and your Y diameter. That's the parameters for an ellipse. Now, if you can think that you're drawing a box around this ellipse, or that a box is being created and a circle is being drawn within that box, that'll give you an idea kind of where that ellipse will be found, because that upper left-hand corner will be your X anchor and your Y anchor. Your X and Y coordinates will be up here in the top left, and then it will make a box, the width and length or diameter of the X and Y, and then it will draw a circle in there in the center. So let's try that. 30, 30, 35, 35. Let's draw that one out. And it was, again, 30, 30, 35, 35. Okay, and there's your ellipse. Now maybe we want to move it down further over here. We don't need to do a bunch of changing. We just are going to create maybe an increase in our X and Y coordinates, maybe by 100. And so then it should shift it down further down. Okay. All right, continuing through this, we may want to look at arcs. These are partial ellipses, circles that can be drawn by the arc function. So you have your XY, your width, your height, your start angle, and your stop angle. All right, so with that arc, you're going to have your anchor point, your X and Y, your width and height of that arc, which is basically just a portion of a circle. So if you can think, we're only going to have a part of that circle where we have a starting point drawing that circle and an ending point, so a start and stop angle. Now, I did provide a document on my website that's going to be very handy for you. So if you go into resources, on the bottom right-hand side resources, you will see this document, Processing Radian and Degree Measurements. That's going to be helpful because it does show you kind of the radians and degrees that you can create arcs with. So let's make an arc that starts at the bottom at this 90, radians 90, and it goes halfway to this radians of 270. So let's make an arc that looks like that. So we have arc is the method, and we have our X and Y location. Let's do 100 by 100 and make the arc a width of and height of 200 apiece. And now then we have our starting angle, so it's a radians, and then I said I wanted it to be starting at the bottom, so that is 90. And then the ends at like 270. And a semicolon at the end. We should probably have one more closing parameter there. Okay. XY, width, height, start, stop. So there's our half of an arc right there. You can fiddle around a little bit with this and see what it does. Maybe we start, and you might find that sometimes the arc is not created, so look at kind of the thought process on this diagram here. So we can try to mess things around a little bit. Let's start from 0. Let's make a bottom arc, 0 to 180. And we run that. That should be the lower half of the circle. Right down here. Okay. That's the basics for your arc. So you can try making the following arcs right here. Now color is a combination of RGB values. And the way that you will do that is you will do a fill feature prior to drawing your shape. So we will fill it with a color RGB. So this is a red value. And then you're going to draw your shape. So we fill it, first you dip your paintbrush in the bucket of paint that you have selected, and then you paint your object. So let's throw in some color on our previous ones. Now once I dip my paintbrush into this bucket, all objects following that will be drawn with that paintbrush that has been dipped in red. Now, so now all of my objects will be red. Now to change that up, you just need to simply maybe fill with a different color. So I'm going to put in maybe some green, so no value for red, full value for green, no value for blue. So I'll have some drawn in red and then now some drawn in green. If you can see them, because there we go, so then perfect. And we'll do a little bit of value in blue maybe here, so 0, 0. Now we should have the last, our arc now should be in blue. Okay, so those are how we see that. So that's how you do color. You can read through this. Here are some combinations of different colors over here, RGB values. Now if you put a fourth parameter inside, it would be transparency. So on your fill feature here, if you see 4 parameters, you have your RGB value and then an opacity value. So you can see that it does somewhat overlay and show sort of through the top object down to the bottom object. So let's throw a little opacity into our example here. All right, so let's throw some opacity in here. Let's just try 127. So now we have 4 parameters. You have RGB and your fourth parameter being opacity. So let's run that and see what that looks like here. So you can see that it, you can see through that to some degree. So we do have this, the last object being drawn is that arc, and it is overlaying this ellipse so that you can still see through the arc to get to that ellipse. Without that opacity there, this 127, we run that, you will not be able to notice that ellipse in the background. It's covered up by this arc. So you can create various designs, shapes, drawings. And we have the weight of the line that is being used can be adjusted as well, and that's called stroke weight. So I'm going to continue that example on my next video, and that will be it for today. Thank you, and hope things are going well.